Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. Hello, thank you so much for tuning in to the first ever Hyphenate Halftime. This is the show where I sit down with my good friend Aaron Farley and we discuss last week's episode and get into all the details, all the fun bits that we went over with the guest. We'll eventually read some emails from listeners and get into anything else that's of interest to the Hyphenate family out there. But yeah, this first one we're going to talk about Oliver Ackerman. It's our first time doing it, so we're still just kind of getting our sea legs going here, but it's a lot of fun. I hope you dig it, and thank you to everybody at Ruinous for making this all happen. All right, here it is, me and Aaron Farley. This is like a wrap-up show, or I don't know, we could probably think of a better name than that, or not necessarily wrap-up, but a reflection show on last week's episode. What did you think about Oliver Ackerman? I'm trying to, I've known him for quite a while, but I want to know what was your sort of take on him?
Well, I thought it was awesome because I actually I only know him through the emails from the Soundfield project.
Oh, right.
And it was a lot of like, this looks rad. These are awesome. Like, I'm so psyched. But that's kind of all I knew. And then I didn't know A Place to Bury Strangers. I knew the band, but I've never seen them live.
Okay.
And I'd listened to a couple tracks, but it actually gave me a really good insight on him. Like, I didn't know he was in the same camp as like Lightning Bolt and Black Dice and all of that. So then I went back yesterday and listened to a couple of songs and went, oh yeah, of course, this makes so much sense. I had no idea.
Yeah. So Oliver Ackerman runs Dead Strange, the record label, right? Mm-hmm. That put out my second solo record that we worked on. We've worked on both solo records together. Oh yeah. So you know Oliver from working on Soundfield Volume 2020, because you put out that record, right? And then I'm just thinking too, like, how do you and I know each other? Who are you? I don't, for people that don't know.
We did a quick history.
Right. We probably should do something like that. So at least it is documented. So you and I have known each other for many
20 years probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, when did Wives and No Age start?
So that was 2005. Was the end of Wives, and then I was a substitute teacher briefly, and my now wife, then girlfriend, Shannon, wrote a story for, what was it, City Beat, or
not the LA Weekly, but it was the other one that was around at that point, LA Alternative.
Yeah,
maybe.
And she wrote a story about teachers who also played in rock bands, and
I believe it was called Teachers Who Rock. I think.
Such a wordsmith, that one.
Yeah.
And then you came down to the classroom where I was working, and we shot it with. It was me, Tara Tavi from Amps for Christ, and Blue Silk Sutures, and a million other bands. And who was an Eric Pritchard? No. Eric. Someone else. There was another teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, I've run into him. I think he's like a film producer or like a.
I used to see him around all the time after that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd only met him through that photo shoot, but then I've seen him. Yeah, I think he's big time. I think he's the most successful person from that cover photo shoot. So that's where we officially met. But I had seen your band, Sabertooth Tiger, before.
Yeah.
Before that time, but I don't know if we ever officially did the.
I don't think no, and because I didn't know you during Wives, but I knew Dean from the old Buddyhead days, so I knew of the band. Right. I knew of Wives. And then of course I knew of No Age. But yeah, you and I had never met. And then I think officially, other than that photo shoot, I actually think I met you at an all ages show that was in, it was, but you guys weren't even playing, but you were there, and you and I talked a bunch, and it was like a crazy,
where was that
I
at?
don't know, but around that time.
Okay.
It was down on Glendale Boulevard. There was like a little art, like by
Yes.
Echo Park.
Mm-hmm.
What was that place called? I don't know. They used to have parties and art shows and a bunch of craziness.
Oh,
and
yes.
then you'd run around
Or well, it wasn't
Echo Park at night.
It wasn't Glen. It was at Soft Boiled Aggies art show place. Where
Maybe
on Alvarado. There was that one. There was like a little art gallery right on Alvarado, just north of the.
This was like way almost down to your studio.
Oh,
it was like when you get almost down by the freeway.
Il Corral.
Yes,
or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But a long time. I'm very surprised. I remember any of this. I mean, not only was it so long ago, but there was also so much weird. I just feel like it was just like a bunch of pirates running around. I'm like, where are we going tonight?
Yeah, I think that was.
I'm like, we just show up at this place. I heard about this place, and but I feel like that's, I don't know. We had so many common friends too. It's like, you don't know Randy?
Right.
I remember hearing that a long time. Like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
that still happens to me today. I just met someone last weekend, and they're like, "Oh, I've heard about you for years." I'm like, oh,
yeah,
wow, how nice is this? A new friend.
Yeah, yeah.
And awesome. I'm trying to, I mean, again, I guess this conversation definitely places us in the old man camp. But I mean, do young kids still do this? Or they just wander around from house to house, or from party to party and gallery to gallery, and just, Thursday night or Friday night, you start, texts start going out like, where's the place? What's the party tonight? And everybody just
I'm pretty sure
stuff. It must.
I mean, if not, all those venues would not be open anymore. So it must happen.
Yeah.
I think that like our friends Neil and Jen have a son who's 14, almost 15, or no, maybe he's 15.
Yeah.
And he has a band called One Way Mirror, and they are now playing like house parties all the time. They're like going to Simi Valley. They're playing in Echo Park. But every weekend they're playing these big house parties. There's like 100 kids, and it's like watching those old I don't know, all those old house parties we used to play, where you just show up and be like, where did all these kids come from?
And it's the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you load all your amps into a living room, people will show up.
Right.
More likely if you have a keg of beer. That's more likely than the band.
Or both.
Yeah.
A little bit of both.
But I'm trying to.
So I think that's still. I think that's still happening. I'm pretty sure.
So I saw Sabertooth Tiger at like that. It was some restaurant on Hillhurst. Do you remember playing on the patio? You like played at a patio in a restaurant, or maybe it wasn't a patio.
On Hillhurst.
I feel like
we played downstairs at Vita a couple times. Do you remember that?
Maybe that must have been.
It was like a night, like a
nightclub.
Rebecca's night.
That sounds right.
It's like a Tuesday or Thursday or something. We played down there a couple times.
Yep. I think that's where I first saw you. Okay, so I feel like we got that out of the way. We've known each other a long time. Yeah. You're originally from Spokane, Washington. You are a filmmaker, photographer, graphic designer, conceptual artist. I don't know. What is the? I guess you qualify as a hyphenate co-host, probably more so than even I do. Yeah. What are your hyphenates?
I would mostly say photography and artwork, and then I've done design, but I would definitely not call myself a designer by any means. I've designed things here and there.
Yeah.
Mostly album artwork for you. I think that's.
I mean, that's why I think of you as a designer. Yeah. You're my go-to designer.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, mostly photographer. I mean, it's like everything kind of started with photography, which I think was interesting, which I'll talk about for the Ray Barbie episode. Oh, yeah. But I thought his views on a lot of that were so interesting, because I've always thought of the weird thing about being a photographer, especially back in the late 90s to now, is like you were kind of a unicorn. Like there weren't very many photographers around. So if you were a photographer and you had met a band or whatever, and you said, hey, can I get in to take photos of you guys? You'd always get put on the list. There was always space, like, oh, what are you going to do? Can you send me prints? Or, and it was such a weird access thing. Like if you were a photographer, you just kind of had access to all this weird stuff, or you could go even at parties or whatever. It's like you always had something to do. You walk around, take pictures of people or whatever, and people weren't weird about it.
Yeah.
Because like, what do you? Oh, you're a photographer. That's kind of, I don't even know what that is. But I feel like that's what started um, a lot of my other interests, even in music and playing in a band and stuff. Is like I met all those people through photography originally, and then started playing. But then even then, when we would play, I would take photos of the other bands, and that allowed us to go on tour and all those kind of things. So photography was kind of this. I still just call myself a photographer. I think because it always just comes back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah, and it comes and goes. It goes in waves. Like right now, I haven't been taking many photos. It gets kind of overwhelming, I think, especially now with digital. It's like it's overwhelming of like, where am I going to put all this stuff? How do I keep it? How do I keep control of the beast?
The massive hard drives of just endless data.
Yeah, just trying to find things. And yeah,
you're right.
I'm not the most. If I showed you my office, you'd say like I'm not the most organized.
Well, I feel like
even
recording stuff, like doing music recording things, I've pride myself on having an organized hard drive ish, or organized where I remember. I can usually find things, but it doesn't necessarily mean anyone else would ever be able to find things. But like, oh yeah, that's under vocal test take 1.2 final mix dot
final
final
dot two dot actual final real final final approved.
That's how usually, as soon as I think I have something good, or I just go by dates, which again, in theory sounds good, but again, you have no idea what is no age 12.4. 19. Like, okay, well, there's a year, there's a date there. What were we working on a record? Is there a song? And then I'll find them. There's a song that then made it to a record, but I only have to know it I have to remember the date we recorded the song, because we didn't have a name for the song then. That's incredible. Okay, so I feel like that goes back and forth. Yeah, and obviously we can talk, photography and the evolution of digital photography, and that's sort of an ongoing. I guess I was just thinking, the idea of being a photographer has probably changed a lot over the last 20 years. You know what I mean? Where I think about like, oh, I'm a photographer. Like, oh, great, yeah, me too. Here, I got my phone. Look, I'm a photographer. Ooh, la, 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 I'm a photographer. In the same way I say, oh, I can record a record. Oh yeah, I can record a record too. It's it's like I have Logic. Cool, we can all do the same thing. And like, you're not wrong. It's not.
You have the tools.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah, the tools have definitely changed. Commercial photography is always weird because it always changes so fast, and there's so many facets of it that like if you're shooting cars, you're in a different bracket than someone that's shooting like flower vases on white or something. So to even call it the same job is a little bit.
Oh, within the commercial photography world, it's not. Yeah, are you fashion? Are you product? Are you?
Yeah.
Lifestyle.
The thing that's changed has been the like party photos. Yeah, I guess you'd call it, I don't know, lifestyle or something like that. That seems to be where a lot of younger people get hired, maybe before they're ready, because of their Instagram page or something. It's like, oh, it looks good, but then they get hired, and then you realize like that you have to manage a set of 40 people and do all those things, and it's not like going out and chilling with your friends taking pictures at the beach.
Right. Yeah.
It's mostly organization and relationships. And so I think that like as much as the tools change and the budgets change and all those kind of things, like if you can figure out a way to manage your relationships with clients and then not screw up, I think you're fine. But it gets harder and harder because the jobs are different, and the money is spread out a lot. the money is spread out a lot more. So it's like what used to be one shoot is now the same budget, but they need 10 shoots, and they need like stuff for Instagram, and they need video content, and then they need behind the scenes, and they need, and you're like, oh, but the budget's the exact same as it was
just
last
for shooting
time
still,
when you just needed
still
photos.
Yeah.
So I think that's where, but I don't know, people figure it out. There's still a lot of photographers that are doing a lot of like that are figure it out, but it's different. I mean, I think musicians are the same, right? It's like,
Oh God,
you
yeah.
used to be able to sell CDs because you're marking up, like you're buying something for $1 and you're selling it for 10. And so you're basically like selling plastic. Like you're making money by selling plastic and t-shirts.
Yeah.
And then once the plastic went away, you're like, oh wait, how is music, how is it, what's the worth? Like when it's not like music, especially music is not a physical thing. At least a photo is a physical thing, but music just like exists. It's like it's a file, but it's not really a file because you have to have something to play the file. The music is actually like the sound in the air.
So it feels more ephemeral. Like you can hear sound anywhere. Like what makes one sound more valuable than another sound, right? Those kinds of questions.
But I think I think music is probably the most important art form. I think.
Aw.
Which is the toughest. I mean, I really do, because it's the thing that like, you don't have like full churches in the South like trading photographs. Like, oh, look how great, but you have these songs that go for hundreds and hundreds of years that bring whole communities together and all that. And I think, it's like a really hard thing to monetize. It's also the only language. And again, we can talk about this in the Ray Barbie one when he talks about language, like the language of art. But I think the language of music is, because like you can listen to something that you don't, like something from Africa, and you don't understand the words, but it absolutely doesn't matter. Like that's just an added little part. It's actually the beat and the timing and 100%. And I think maybe like photo and art is that way too. But I think music is way more accessible. Like people understand like a beat more than they understand like colors and
I wonder though. I feel like
how to frame things in a box.
Why? Yeah, or what makes it good? There's sort of a. I think both of them. There's a subliminal sort of art to it, or sort of some kind of subconsciousness to it that people just respond to things. But again, how often do people buy a photo? I mean, they'll buy things with photos on them. But again, it's like, the appreciation of like, I want that photo. Unless,
I don't buy photos.
It's usually associated with content. That's like, I want that picture of Kurt Cobain, and it's like, oh, cool. So
exactly.
Whether it's a Charles Peterson photo or this person or whoever took it, but it's more the content versus the what. But that being said, those photographers had to create that iconic pose and find the timing and find the exposure and find the framing, and they did all of the work for the guy was just standing there playing or doing whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely a mix. Yeah. All right. Well, and I think photos exist in a book best anyway.
Right.
That's why photo books very popular.
Yeah.
Buying prints, not very popular.
but when you say very popular, you're talking into the hundreds of dollars, right? Thousands of dollars of photo books. Yeah. Okay, well, so let's jump back into Oliver. I feel like, I feel like this is where our conversations just go down the rabbit hole for 4 hours, but it's great. So Oliver Ackerman, yes, Place Very Strangers. I've known Oliver for quite a while. I think when Place Very Strangers first started, I feel like they were an interesting band because they sort of came out, from like a New York underground, but it was really like they had a bigger explosion, I think 5-6 years into their career. I remember the first time probably meeting Oliver was we played at All Tomorrow's Parties in England. It was like a Pitchfork curated one, and we played with them upstairs, and they were so loud. They're like one of the loudest bands I'd seen, and they had strobes and smoke, and it was a full on like production, it's kind of theatrical stage production that I don't think was quite what was going on in LA at that particular time. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, when he said, he was like, I'd like to bring, I would bring like 4 twin reverbs with me. I was like, oh my God, you're setting up 4 twin reverbs.
Yeah.
Like that's not,
it's not nothing.
No, it's not nothing. And I loved his, I mean, whatever personality that is, that the people that are like, you know what, I need to make some money. So what I'm going to do is build pedals and sell them.
Yes.
Instead of just going like, maybe I should go work a job for a couple of weeks to get some money to go on tour. And there was something really special. Like even when he was talking about that, that was like, it just completely made sense to him. Like he said it to you, like it was no big deal. And I was like, wait, nobody does that.
Yeah.
Wait, why would you take this thing? And, and I wonder too, with some of that is in the back of his head, there's also if I learn how to make pedals, I can have free pedals for the rest of my life. And there's that, like, I'm going to put all of this time and effort to be able to one day walk into a warehouse and just grab like, make
Parts.
the ones that I want, and then just grab the pedals that I need for to go on tour.
But that's
which
like,
is everyone like if you give a musician like $200, you're like, oh man, I got $200. And if you gave a musician a $200 pedal, you'd be like, oh my god, this is amazing. It's like it's worth so much more than the money to actually get gifted something that you would want to buy, but you just don't. You're like, oh, there's better ways to spend $200, even though I really want that thing.
that's interesting. Yeah. I'm sure or, you know, but just the way someone's mind would work. Like I've been obsessed with pedals, you know, for probably the same amount of time, but I spent, you know, probably 2 hours looking at the same books and going like, I don't know how to do this, or what am I going to get out of this? Even worse, best case scenario, I have a crappy pedal that I built that, you know what I mean? That I could, you know, for $5, I could buy a better one for 50, you know, I just
right.
But it's that kind of thing too, where like, but like you're saying, it's like, well, if I learn how to build a car now as a 16-year-old, like, well, before I can drive the car, you know, if I can build a car, then I'll never have to buy another car ever. You know what I mean?
Or I can
mentality.
buy cheap cars and then fix them up.
Right. Yeah, which I think people do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and I thought here I wrote down a couple other notes. I mean, I thought it was cool when you guys were talking about your like. I mean, I love your stories about your like journeys into feedback and all of those things, that your experimentation when you were young, that you kind of learned. You looked at guitar playing as more of a sound study from the very beginning, which I think most kids learn all the basics and then eventually they're like, oh wait, noise bands exist. I can just kind of experiment. Like that seems like that usually happens later in life. And for you, those stories that of you in your bedroom, like with the guitar against the ladder,
yes,
just trying to make sounds, it's amazing.
Or you can see this ladder over my shoulder here. I still have the ladder is part of the recording studio. No, I think it was that kind of feeling of like not knowing how to play, but liking sounds and liking the, you know, and I think first discovering like Jimi Hendrix, then into Sonic Youth, sort of, I felt like I had the permission to just like all the stuff, you know, seeing Thurston Moore as a, you know, as a teenager, for me coming up seeing Thurston Moore with like a drumstick, like under the strings and just hitting it. It was just like, oh, okay, this can be that was all the permission I needed to just sort of just like, you can get weird and it doesn't sound great, but there's a forum for not sounding great. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, cool. While I'm learning these chords and things, what if I just try to make all these other sounds at the same time? Because it was a lot easier to turn stuff up and get weird than actually sitting there and figuring out scales
and learning.
Actually learning the correct way. It's a lot more fun too. And I felt.
Well, I remember. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I just think it built my like kind of callous, or my sort of the patience of sort of just hearing sounds. You know, I think when you make anything, you can appreciate the process. So in hearing somebody, you know, the kind of noisier bands or things, it was like, oh, cool. I think a lot of times, you know, I've sat in many an art gallery or show or warehouse and just heard somebody just play some squalling guitar, you know, it doesn't sound like anything, but as somebody who had also done that, I was a practitioner and a fan as well. Like I could see it on both sides.
Well, and I remember in college going to watch a friend's band, and he was, you know, one of the songs started with him plucking the strings on the other side of the bridge.
Oh yeah.
You know, they're like plink, plink, plink. I was like,
What the fuck was that?
What is that?
Yep.
What is that sound? And looking and going, you can do that? I never thought about doing that. And then, he'd pluck the strings on the headstock next. And like,
Yeah.
oh, you could do that too?
Wait a
I didn't
second.
even think about doing that.
Yeah.
But it does, like, it just opens your mind to go, oh yeah, right. There aren't any rules. And I feel like that's what Oliver was talking about too. It was like every time that someone would kind of bring up a rule of like, oh, you can't do that. You can't play that loud. You can't make your own pedals. You can't start your own label. That he was just like, oh, that sounds like a good idea to then do that thing that person told me not to do.
Yeah. When you don't know which way to go the way everyone's telling you not to go. That's always
right.
Good. Start there. Start with the thing they're saying you shouldn't do. No, I think Oliver's totally inspiring, and it definitely got me kind of into that. And I think there's something about that sort of late teenage, early 20s sort of mindset of like that you're rebellious enough and want to sort of punch everybody in the eye or at least poke somebody with a stick. That kind of mentality, but being able to carry that on into sort of lifelong sort of artistic practice. Of like just going against the grain wherever that is, or just being a self-starter and making stuff with friends. I think that was, I felt like, I was inspired by that, hearing him say those things.
Well, and even him talking about, going into the tunnel and there's a show and we're like, we should light a fire under here also while we're like, while the show is happening. And that idea of having those feelings of freedom and need to express yourself, but there's no reason why. You don't know why yet because you're not old enough to know why. You just have the feelings of like, I just have to get out and do this thing. And why do you play so loud? I don't know. I mean, even for us, when we played, we're like, well, at least we'll be the loudest band here. At the very least, we'll always try to be the loudest, and then we'll put on a good show or whatever. But but I think that there's that thing of like, why do you want to be the loudest? I don't know. It just feels right. I don't know. It feels good.
Yeah. I think there's I think I always kind of equate volume with scale in like other visual arts, whether it's sculpture or photography or something. Sometimes just think something so huge, whether it's good or not, well, there's power in that. Like that is a huge something, and you kind of walk away going, well, okay. I think volume kind of has a similar sort of place in a sound art, again,
I mean, I guess the word, right? The word volume is also in a physical way is the amount of space that you fill up. So it would make sense. Yeah.
And I think that's appropriate definitely in talking about, Place to Bury Strangers and Oliver is, volume. And I think, just kind of it's filling the space, on so many levels. And then had you heard of the Death by Audio venue? Or did you know anything about that? Like, okay, I think we get into that in our conversation. That was kind of an important piece of the puzzle for the many things that he did, just having that venue there. And I think it was right place at the right time. It was right there in Williamsburg. At the time and place to sort of be there, where it went from warehouses, then shortly gentrified into giant offices. I think Vice actually bought or rented, so they never owned that building, right? So they were renting. Oliver was renting the building, renting a space in a building, and making the pedals on one side, living in another side, and then there was another little room that they're like, oh, we could throw shows here. Yeah. And then the owner, as the price rose, kicked him out, remodeled it, and then Vice Media rented it. And I had actually I had been back. I went to the Vice office years later and kind of like, oh, right, that's where the stage was, or that's kind of where, it was hard to recognize.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like, wow, it's so different.
Did you guys ever play there?
Oh, yeah. So Death by Audio, we played a bunch.
Yeah.
So it was kind of akin, I think, similar to, sort of a Smell vibe, but in New York at that time, in the sort of the mid to late aughts. Yeah. Sort of that all ages, kind of lawless sort of warehouse space, but in a very cool place where people wanted to go anyway. And there was like 2 or 3 other galleries in the same building, but just on a different block, where like one building takes up a whole block sort of thing. Yeah. Like Death by Audio was on one side, and this other gallery or show space called Glasslands was on another side. And then there was even a third one. I forget what that was called, but there was a bunch of cool kind of places. all right in the spot.
Oh,
And it
that's
was
cool.
just across the street from the Domino Sugar Factory. So it sort of seemed like, you know, again, kind of how downtown LA used to feel, that sort of no man's land of, you know,
Yeah.
just anything. You're in your 20s and it's 4 o'clock at night and you got a bunch, you know, got 80 sweaty people around you. You have the permission to do anything you want to do at that point. And you're like,
Especially LA back at that time, that there was really nothing like the downtown. Well, not even really downtown. What the Santa Fe area by the practice spaces there,
oh yeah.
by downtown rehearsal, was just like after 10, it was like there was nobody there. And there weren't even really stores. There's a couple gas stations, so even like there weren't even that many homeless people there. Like it was just like nothing. And you'd go to like 6th Street Warehouse or one of those places, and you're just like, are there any rules anywhere around here? This is crazy. I mean, I remember coming here from Portland, and within the first couple of years, still just feeling like I really don't understand this place. I don't understand how the LA works at all.
Yeah, but that's sort of the fun of it, right? It's sort of
Oh, totally.
make your own rules or kind of create your
Yeah.
own sort of place. Which I
When
think.
I remember Brian, do you remember Brian had a warehouse space down there where he lived, and then it had like a hallway, and it had like 4 or 5 kind of art galleries, and then they had a massive warehouse spot where there would just be shows. And
Where was it? Brian who?
God, I don't remember what it was called.
Which Brian? I don't know.
Oh, I'm forgetting his last name now. But it was this place that he was renting. I'm like, you're renting this place? How much is it? He's like, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like $1,400 a month. I mean, it's probably like 8,000 square feet. It was so massive. It was half of a block. And we were all like, whoa, how are you coming up with $1,400 every month? Like, I don't know, man. But we're doing it.
Oh, it's amazing.
But and now that place is a massive art gallery. I think it was where Wild and Crayon was for a while, and then I don't know who took it over now. But it's kind of across the street from the rehearsal spots that were on Santa Fe that are now now the hotel or whatever that's called, the private club.
Yes, I do remember that. I do know that place. Yeah,
it's like right down the street from that.
Yep. Yeah, what was that called? I do remember that place.
I don't know.
I got in trouble. I was really drunk one night there, and
yeah,
and they wouldn't let me in. It was after an FYF fest, and I remember I peed through the gate.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It was one of my more embarrassing public displays of drunkenness.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I mean, I saw Mean Reds play there, and Anthony like smashed a bottle and just cut himself up on purpose. It was just one of those like, oh wow, this is really happening. This place is like one of those spots that you heard about. It's actually happening right in front of us right now.
Yeah, this is not Iggy Pop in the Rolling Stones' wildest shows ever. Moments like this is an actual thing happening. Just kind of people. yeah. I wonder if I mean, the whole reflecting on kind of the early mid aughts sort of thing of like that kind of, it felt like it was really, looking back on it now, I guess in hindsight, it was sort of the last sort of time before social media and before digital cameras in everyone's pockets on the phones. And, it was before just that last sort of thing. So it really did feel like you could do something, and whatever was happening was the thing that was happening. There wasn't the FOMO of like, oh, I got to look at my phone because there could be something else happening. Like there could be, but what do you know? Like, all I have is this warehouse and this bottle or this, guitar, this band, this thing happening right here is it. There's nothing else, in the world. So.
Yeah. And it's funny to even think about how everybody even found out about stuff.
Yeah, right.
Because even that would be like, it was before Facebook or whatever, and those warehouse shows, it was all just word of mouth, right? Hey, we're playing a thing.
Totally, right.
And then you tell 3 people, and then they tell 5 people, and because now I'm even thinking of like, how did we promote things?
Right.
For those little shows.
Maybe a flyer.
I don't know, flyers maybe? I don't know.
But mostly, you just talk to a million people, throughout your day, everyone you talk to at a bar or at a party. Hey, this Thursday, this is happening. This Tuesday, this is what's going on. That gallery, that was also where Kate Hall from Miko Miko got shot out front.
Oh my God, you're right.
That was that
same place.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. Yeah, it's like now whatever that was called. There was so much that happened there. It was people she was with got into an argument with somebody else, and then they all got in a car, and these guys shot at their car, not trying to shoot at her, but then the bullet came through the window and went through her face and out the back, and then it was incredible, and she survived. But
yeah,
it was wild.
Oh wow, I forgot that was there.
Yeah. But I mean, so that's all of that stuff. There's the wild and the crazy and the,
still the Wild West.
Yeah, I know. I just saw Mika Miko play a reunion show. It was 13 years since their last show.
Oh yeah, I saw some of the videos.
They sounded incredible.
Amazing.
It was great.
Yeah,
that might date this recording. We'll have to take that out. I don't know. We should probably wrap this one up here.
Yeah,
and then I think this was good. I think there was a lot going on. Was there anything else? Did I gloss over something, or do you have anything else in your notes?
No,
Oliver. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Have you played any DBA pedals?
No, I never have.
I think the Fuzz War is the place to start usually.
They all look amazing.
Yeah, right.
I love the design of them, but they just look like they look hardy.
Yes, that's a good way to put
it.
You
look at them, you're like, there's so many, like they just look like they wouldn't break.
Yep.
And there's so many buttons or knobs that they're like, oh, all these look fun, and they look like they probably do what they're supposed to do, but you could really make it do something completely unique as well.
Yep.
Like they're made to, yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on our first, we never really came up with a name for it.
I don't know.
So this is Hyphenate with Randy Randall follow-up show. This is the Randy Aaron talk shit half hour. Yeah. I don't know.
The hyphenate show.
The hyphenate halftime.
Yeah. After hyphenate.
Yeah, I like that.
The post hyphenate show.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah.
That'll work.
We'll figure it out. Whatever.
Hyphenate halftime. There's a lot of alliteration.
I got to think about it. Post hype.
Yeah. Huh. Well, okay. Well, to be continued. We'll see if we figure it out on the next one.